Okay guys, so now we're gonna start having a quick review on very basic concept of statistics. Again, these exams don't go into advanced knowledge. It's more about clarifying the concept. So remember that it's a quick review. Then going over the videos on different questions, you will see how these concepts start connecting to the questions being asked. And well, we'll be getting these topics a little more in depth. Okay? Now, let's start reviewing what is the mean, the median, the mode, and the range. So let's start here with the mean. What is the mean? Remember, by definition, the mean is also what we call the average, okay? And you find the mean, right, by having the sum of the elements, right? You sum the elements in a list over, or you divide it by the number of elements in the list, right? So let's work it out here with a quick example. So if you have the list and it might be, well, I'm going to give it already in order. Normally, let's put it here as another important thing for you to remember. In all exercises where you're dealing with the mean, the median, the mode, the range, with these concepts, I always recommend that the very first step is for you to organize the list from the in ascending order, so from the least to the greatest, okay? Now whenever you do that, then it's a better idea for you to start finding the mean, the median, the mode, the range. In the mean is not gonna be that much of a difference, but in finding the range, finding the median, that's gonna be important. So it's not a bad practice, okay? So we were saying, let's say that we have a mean here, and let's say that we have -7, -1, we have 0, we have 5 and 23, right? So we want to find the mean. So how do we find the mean? The sum of the elements. So it will be 7 plus -1 plus 0 plus 5 plus 23 over the number of elements. How many elements do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so divided by 5. This value that we find is going to be the mean or the average of this list of elements. If we do so, this is -7, -1 is -8, plus 0 is -8, plus 5 is -3, -3 plus 20 is going to be 20 positive divided by 5. We solve it, and 4 will be the mean of this list of elements. So remember how you find it? We summed all the elements and then we divide by the total number of elements that we may have. All right, I think that you remember that one. It's pretty straightforward. Now, let's talk about the median. What is the median? Remember, by definition, the median is the element or the value in the very middle, okay, of the list. The value in the very middle of the list. Now, remember that here is super important, again, that the list must be organized from the least to the greatest value, okay? So the value in the very middle. So let's go with an example. Let's try to check the same example as before. We got here -7, we got -1, we got 0, we got, I forgot, 5, I think, and 23. So we have two scenarios. In this case, check out that we have an odd number of elements, right? We have 5 elements. The one in the very middle. So in this case, this one right here, right? This 0 will be the median. Why? Is the element in the very middle. We have that element, we have 2 numbers to the left, we have 2 numbers to the right, so it's exactly the point in the very middle of the list. That will be the median. So now this happens, you know, when you have an odd, okay, number of elements. You can always identify the one that it goes exactly in the middle, in the very middle. Okay, now let's check this case. Let's say that we have another list. Let's say that we have -13, maybe we have here 4, maybe here we have 10 and 57. Now check out that in this case we have an even number of elements. We have 4 elements in the list. So how do we find that value in the middle? How do we find the median? In this case, what we want to go for is you take the 2 in the middle, okay? In this case, 10 and 4. And what we will do is we will find the mean, the average of the two in the middle, okay? And that will be my median. So if we find this in the average of these two, so you know how to find the average, is the sum divided the number of elements. So here the sum is 14 divided by two elements that we have, 7. So this 7 will be the median, okay? So remember that this is the process that I need to keep in mind whenever we are talking about an even number of elements, okay? An even number of elements in the list. You find the 2 in the middle, and you will find the average of those 2 in the very middle, okay? The next concept for us to be very clear on is the mode. So how do we define the mode? The mode is simply, whenever you see a list of elements, is the number that repeats the most, okay? So the number that repeats the most, okay? So if we have a list, say 0, 1, 1, 2, and 3. So the number that repeats the most, this one repeats twice. So from here, you know that the mode of this list is 1, right? Now, another important concept for you to keep in mind is that in a list of elements, you can have as many modes, well, as the list have, as many modes as the list actually have. As the list has. So what I'm saying here is that you can have the same 1, 0, 1, let's say another 1, 2, and here you have a 3, another 3. So in this case, we have two elements that repeats the greatest number of times. We have the 1 repeats twice. We know that the 3 repeats twice. So these list of elements have two modes, okay? The modes of this list will be 1, and the other mode will be 3. Clear? If you may have, because this next concept, again, tend to be tricky, and as always, these exams, they always try to play with your mind, with your head, try to get you confused. Let's say that you have the list 0, 1, 2, and 3. What will be the mode? Pay attention to the definition. It's the number that repeats the most. So the 0 repeats once, right? The 1 repeats once. The 2 repeats once. The 3 repeats once. So simply by applying the definition of what the mode is, the modes of this list are 0, 1, 2, and 3. All of them are modes. Here, be careful. Many times people tend to think that, okay, this list has no mode. But that's the tricky part that the makers of the exam want to for us to fall into that mistake by saying that there are no modes, whereas in reality we have like many modes, all of them are modes. Comply with the definition, the number that repeats the most. And lastly, we are going to talk right now about the range. Again, everybody has the idea, or most of my students have told me the idea that the range is like, it goes from this point to this point, like what it covers, But keep in mind that the range is a number, and that number is found by making the difference or the subtraction of taking the greatest number, okay, of the list minus, you're going to subtract the least number of the list, okay? So let's go with the example that we have put together. If we have the list 0, 1, 2, 3, and 3, we identify what is the greatest one. The greatest number, because it's already organized. Check out that this is one of those exercises where it is super important for you to organize the elements or the list from the least to the greatest. It's because of this. Here the greatest number is going to be this 3, right? And the least is going to be 0. So if we want to find the range here, we take the greatest number, that is 3, minus the least, that is 0. So the range in this very specific case is 3. All right? Now, one of the other examples that we put together, we had -7, I think that -3, 0, 5, and 23, if I'm not mistaken. The same thing. The greatest number, 23. The smallest, -7. We apply the definition. Range is going to be the greatest number, that in this case is 23, minus the least number. Pay attention here. The least number is negative 7. So the greatest minus the least, whatever the least is, positive or negative, is negative. So if we solve this, you know that minus and minus is plus, so the range here is actually 30. Careful with this aspect. Many people made the mistake and they it's 23 minus 7. No, it's 23 minus the least, and the least is minus 7. So you have 23 minus minus 7. Okay, that will make a big difference. So pay attention to that little detail. And well, these are the mode, the median, the mean, the median, the mode, and the range.